Okay. Hi, everyone. So warmest regards from Istanbul. My name is Atauzun Hasan. I'm Managing Director of Galata Business Angels. Today, we are going to discuss Turkish startup ecosystem, and to provide you with a holistic view, I invited distinctive guests tonight. So we have Umur Özal, who is the partner of VC, Valuta Capital Partners, and at the same time, he's a member of Galata Business Angels, and also he's a very active angel investors, uh, angel investor here in Turkey. We have Özge Öz, who is the partner of QM Beyond. It's a corporate venture capital and accelerator program here in Istanbul. And last but not least, of course, we have Sarkan Ünsal, who is the founder of Startups Watch, and he's keeping the pulse of our startup ecosystem, and he keeps all the updated data about our ecosystem. And if you're ready, we're about to kick off, and I would like to start with Sarkan. So Sarkan, welcome. It's
Thank you.
very happy to see you here. And so what a year it was, 2020. So besides the COVID-19 lockdown, it has been a year to remember for Turkish startup ecosystem as well. And so why? Because we had our first unicorn and increasing interest from both local and international funds and more competitive startups as well. So Serkan, you're following our startup ecosystem from a long time, and you are like the almanac of it. So you can feel the difference that is happening in the last decade, and what has really changed if you just have a look at the data. And can you tell us some numbers proving this change, like the number of gaming companies, etc.?
Yeah, sure. Before 2010, there were lots of bootstrap startups in our ecosystem. Our ecosystem can also be called bootstrap ecosystem because lots of startups bootstrap their idea. After 2010, lots of startups started to get some angel and VC funds, and it started with Peak Games, Trendyol, and Marcofoni. After that, lots of VCs, angel networks, angels established after 2020, 2012, and all numbers are double, tripled, etc. And for example, in 2010, there were only 6 accelerators, and just some angels are listening to startups. Right now, there are 57 accelerators, and many of them are inviting VCs, local VCs, and international VCs. And right now, before 2010, there were only one VC fund, Golden Horn Ventures, and they are just giving convertible debts to some startups. Right now, there are 40 local funds, 40 Istanbul or Ankara-based funds established, and their dry powder is $400 million right
So
now.
is that both VC and corporate venture capitals included?
Yeah, but if a corporate has established a separate arm, then it's counted. If it's not a separate arm or it's
Okay.
just a department, then it's not counted. It's $400 million are waiting for Turkish startups right now. And in 2010, there were only one exit. Right now, up to now, there are 20 exits, and one of them is unicorn, as you said, Peak. And also, there are lots of startups establishing every year. Right now, in Istanbul, there are 170 game studios in Istanbul, and it's the second by numbers in Europe. The most of the game studios established in London, and the second one is in Istanbul. Uh, all those numbers shows that there's a great improvement. There's a great improvement by numbers in VC funds, accelerators, incubators, number of startups, number of funds, etc.
Yeah, actually, the numbers are speaking by themselves, so it's
Yeah.
super impressive. Thank you, Serkan. So, Umur Bey, so you are one of the well-respected angel investors, and you are also a VC partner for a long time. And you are not only investing in Turkey but also investing in Europe as well. So, in your opinion, so if we make that's a compare and contrast type question. So, what are the pros and cons of Turkish startups? Maybe a bonus question actually. So, because you are investing in different stages like pre-seed, seed, Series A, if you're a foreigner VC or investor coming to the Turkey, what is the right stage? So the best stage to invest in Turkish startups, is that pre-seed, seed, early stage, or Series A?
Okay, well, thank you for your kind words. It's a pleasure to be part of the World Net Summit. And as for the pros and cons of the Turkish startups, we have, as Turks, a very entrepreneurial approach. So that's embedded in the founders. On top of that, we have a good number of startups, and most of these startups are driven by need-based ideas. Uh, and that's actually, I think, a differentiator, and that's why we have so many relatively successful startups. um, Another pro would be we have some very credible schools that translates into good talent. We have a relatively young population and a high internet penetration. um, on top of that, Turkey actually in itself is a very large consumer and gaming market. And we should also consider that Turkey is a relatively competitive, has a relatively competitive cost structure. What that means is a senior developer costs only 27% of a senior developer in Silicon Valley. So it's almost one fourth.
Yep.
Um, and on top of that, we have incentives and grants from the government or various other entities that make the life for any startup in this ecosystem much easier. As for the cons, even though I truly loved actually the numbers Sarkhan provided, uh, 40 funds and almost $400 million worth of capital, this is still a very shallow ecosystem. We still have lack of layers for funding, and that creates actually a problem. On top of that, Turkey is actually a very strong market in itself, but it does not have much of an international exposure. And I would say the last con is maybe it's a little bit of a Turkish thing or a Mediterranean thing. We have the laziness tendencies. I quote it actually as not all founders are equal.
Yeah, yeah. I, I
Um,
I agree
but
with
of
that.
course, there are exceptions. I mean, there are some phenomenal guys and girls there who actually do incredible work. So my hats off to them. And
What
um,
the stage? So which is
Okay.
the best stage to
Well,
invest?
I actually, if I may, I would like to separate that into parts. If you are an individual, then I'm assuming you're coming as an angel investor. I would suggest seed or seed extensions because usually, because of the proof of concept or product market fit, pre-seeds are very, very dangerous. And if you are a corporate or institutional entity or a VC, my suggestion would be seed extensions, Series A or B, and I'll explain that. Again, the Turkish market is very, very fragmented in terms of its funders or investors. A lot of micro VCs and small scale VCs. And that means money is very, very scarce. And that actually is valid for follow on rounds, meaning B, C, and D, or even further. So percentage wise, the returns may not be, it may be inferior to the earlier rounds, but you make definitely money. So if you're asking me if a very well established VC were to come to Turkey, if they're not extremely well connected, I would wait and then invest in Series B.
Hmm. Yeah. Okay. So that's a great answer. So you basically what you say, if a Turkish startup succeeds to become a scale up, basically they really succeed, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a very very important point. I didn't underline it before, but I totally agree with you. Thank you very much. So
Well,
Özge, I have some surprising questions to you. So you
Go for
definitely
it.
very surprised with those. So be ready for that, please. So from the first, I think we met 5 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. So and you are playing a very active role in our ecosystem, especially in the corporate venture capital and the accelerator part, and also in the fintech as well, because basically you have been always in working with the banks. And can you please tell us, about the background of the corporate involvement to the startup world? And because the boardrooms, like the chair and the board members and the CEO. So basically, what are their motivation to come into this ecosystem and why they are really involved with the startups? But I know that you are also following the global ecosystems as well, and basically if you name a corporate venture capital, so what should be the role model of the Turkish CVCs? Should that be SoftBank, Amazon, or G Ventures? You name it.
First of all, thank you for having me. It's a great pleasure. Well, the boards follow global, ecosystems very well as well, right? Like they read the books, they see, all the stuff going around in innovation. They see the huge, success stories of the big tech companies and the new players, the IPOs and everything. And in fact, I'm talking about the Turkish ecosystem, by the way, right? They see how these startups can change and sometimes really disrupt some, sectors and areas, right? Especially in financial services as well. So basically, what happens in the US, in Europe, might also come to Turkey in 5, 6, 7 years as well, with a lag, right? Why is there a lag? It's not because of the people's, technical skills or anything. I'm not talking about there's a lag or a lack with the Turkish startups or anything. But as you know, in financial services, regulatory, infrastructure is really important. And the fact that the Turkish banks are really the ones who are the challengers, they're doing great job technically and with the user experience and everything. When you compare them with their, peers in Europe and in US especially, it's kind of tricky for new startups and fintechs to come up and really do an impact in Turkey. There are great examples in Turkey, like Easyco and the others coming up, but it's tricky. But still, you always think in the boardrooms, like, what happens if the regulations change, right? What happens if we're going to have a different world around us? What happens when people are more accustomed to the big guys, the Apples and Amazons and their other services, and they're more used to these kind of services, right? We don't have Apple Pay here. We just had Amazon stores in Turkey, I mean the e-commerce stores, but people in Turkey are getting more and more accustomed to these experiences, right? So they know their customers, the bank's customers, gonna be waiting the same experience from their own banks, primary banks as well. So we kind of have a chance to see what happened in the future, right? We see what happens in the future, but we see it in the same time in US and Europe. So we, as the Turkish banks, because I've been in 3 different banks and I'm now in QNB Finansbank, as you know, we know things can get really interesting soon. So what can you do? You can either play the defensive side, you can ignore everything going around you and say, I'm not going to be hurt by this. I'm going to be still doing great job. Nobody can, disrupt my business. Or you can think that maybe there could be a disruption. And maybe if I partner with these startups, if I can do something together with them, I'll be better off. I can collaborate with them. I can, create my own corporate accelerator program, keep them closer to me so we can do something together. So I'll be providing better experiences to my own customers or through my subsidiary companies, my, sister companies. And in fact, I can invest in them. Right now, the Turkish ecosystem, I think, got this very well. Like, you can partner with these startups, you can do business with them, you can become a client of them, you can invest in them. Although we haven't seen the outcomes yet, right? Like when you talk about corporate VCs, obviously Serkan would know much better. there has been, very aged corporate venture arms as well. But we're seeing the new wave right now, and
Yeah.
the bets we're doing now hasn't played out yet. So we don't know financially we're going to be doing a good job or not. But the thing is, and we see it with QM Ventures as well, since most of the corporate VC arms are looking into this strategically, they always have another way of looking when they're partnering, investing in these startups. They say like, look, we're going to invest in you. Maybe 5 years later, you're not going to be a $1 billion company. Hopefully you will be, but maybe you're not going to be a $1 billion company. But still, because of this relationship we're building together, I'm going to be, having a lot of return on my innovation side, my investment side, and you're going to be happy as well from this partnership, right?
At least they're going to have a very loyal customer, like if
maybe
if
like,
it
because
becomes a very big company.
when it's a corporate VC, I mean, as a startup, there's always the saying like, corporate VCs are usually, dumb, slow, whatever. But it's not the case all the time, right? If you're fast, if you're well adapted to the ecosystem and the rules of it, because you have a usually huge distribution channel, know-how, expertise, and everything, I think it comes an interesting partnership. That's what we're trying to do with Kiamyon Ventures as well. When it comes to the examples, I'm actually looking I try to follow everything, like, the GE Ventures, the like totally financially motivated guys, and also like the guys like, City Ventures and, the others, the more strategically aligned guys, similar to us. But what especially intrigues me, like lately, is like Stripe investing, Atlassian investing. So what I mean, like, these guys used to be startups, as all the companies used to be, like, technically. But these guys were like the proper startups, right? Now they're huge behemoths themselves as well, Atlas, Stripe, and the others. And they started investing. So when a startup looks at them, they're like, these guys know what I've been through. Like, these are the best operators. And they're investing. And still, they invest with a strategic mind as well. Salesforce is the similar thing. Salesforce Ventures have a similar thing. But again, it sounds incumbent when you say Salesforce, but it's not the same with Stripe, Atlassian, and the others. For instance, Slack, right? So I try to look at them closely, and I think mostly they're going to be doing great bets because they have the platform, they have the structure, they have the know-how, and most likely they're going to be acting as fast as a VC can. So I think they're going to, like I said, be doing big bets, good winning bets. Obviously, this is always like, it's going to be a time telling thing, right? Who knows? 5 years later, 7 years later, everything's going to play out, right? In 10 years. So
by the way, I'm quite surprised that you didn't say fear of missing out, because it's a really big trend, right? So we see lots of corporates that are, today I just had a call from a very big company here in Turkey, and they asked me, we are about to launch a corporate VC, so what is the first move that we should take? That was the question that I received, and that's a new thing, right? I didn't heard their name before, and they're not the only one, by the way.
Yeah, FOMO always drives lots of stuff in this world, as you know.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, Özge. It's super impressive. And by the way, I hope that you become the new Stripe, like the Stripe VC of Turkey. So I think it's super impressive. Thank you.
Hopefully. Thanks.
So Umur Bey, as Özge said, and also Serkan mentioned about it. So besides the corporate venture capitals, we also see raise in the number of the VCs, as I just mentioned. And to be honest, yesterday I had a pre-screening call with a startup, and they say that they get an investment from XVC here in Istanbul, and that was the first time that I heard them. And to be honest, as you know, I'm kind of active here, and I was quite surprised that I never heard of them. And there are also some new business angels that are coming on the stage, and recently. So what is the main reason for this increase? So what is your theory about it? And especially for a Turkish VC, partner, why they are excited about this market? Maybe you can also explain it from the point of view why the limited partners are investing into Turkish VCs.
Okay. Well, it's true. Number of VCs and angel investors have increased dramatically, and I think the primary reason is private placements in private equity and venture capital became an asset class because of high
Hmm.
yield potentials. We all see it on paper. It's incredible. Nothing can touch it. And on top of that, since 2007 and 2008, there are a lot of quantitative easing programs collectively for Fed, Central Bank of Europe, Bank of England, and Bank of Japan. There have been 6 rounds that they have collectively done QEs. That means
Hmm.
there's plenty of money in the market. And some of that money trickles down to developmental financial institutions, DFIs, or sovereign structures. And these DFIs or sovereign structures dominate or drive most of the European and Middle Eastern VC environment or scene. Um, Nowadays, almost 80% of all the VCs in Western, Central, and Eastern Europe and Middle East have one or more DFI as investor. To sum it up, what it means is the more money is available, the more willing it is to go places. And
Hmm.
on top of that, if you ask me why the number of VCs and angel investors or angel networks are increasing, because there is no entry barrier. Anyone who has a little bit of money in his or her pocket can actually have a business card printed and say, I'm an angel investor. And who are you to judge them? Or how can you, contradict that? And it's very much similar for the VCs in continental Europe. If you have a, let's say, a sum of less than 100 million euros, there is no regulatory authority that requires you to have any sort of license to manage that money. So any VC team that has enough people, the only requirement they have to actually kick the tires and run it, or get it off the ground is just have money. That's it.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree.
and
Hmm.
what makes actually a specific market interesting for VCs? Um, I'll give you actually the general answers, and then I'll actually provide some examples, and I'll relate it to Turkey. Um, Number one, you need to have some sort of previous track record. You have to, for example, Silicon Valley, San Francisco, Boston, Austin, London, Singapore. These became actually brand names. Why? Because there are a lot of companies that originate from there and
Hmm.
that have become unicorns or decacorns or whatever they have become. So those are the hotbeds for in these places. Or ability to nurture the startup ecosystem or availability of talent or money for follow-on rounds or incentives, special tax breaks or capital gain waivers. If I were to invest my money, I want to make sure that I can actually extract my money back once I have actually some sort of exit. You need transparency or rule of law or ease of exits and capital repatriation that I mentioned. And you have to have actually some sort of a benchmark for that to happen, meaning what sort of a time frame that happens. Nobody wants to sit 20 years. We probably won't be around in 20 years. So we want to make sure that we actually get our money back. And this happens a whole lot faster in, say, Silicon Valley. In developed markets, it's between 3 to 7 years, whereas in underdeveloped or money deprived markets, it varies between 6 to 14 years. So what makes Turkey interesting for VC investments is, as you guys actually mentioned before, there are a bunch of great examples in Turkey, be it EasyCo, be it Peak, be it Gram, be it Yemeksepetin. I mean, we have a bunch of great companies that have been exited or sold, either total buyouts or strategic investors. And I mean, the success story attracts. Then in the ability to nurture startups, yes, we have a relatively decent ecosystem here. It may be shallow, but it's quite willing and it's well-natured. So it does actually everything in its best to accommodate those requirements. Talent-wise, we're not doing too bad. I think we're getting good talent, and the only thing I think in the long run we will need is more money. And we have the incentives. For example, in Turkey, if you own a company for longer than 2 years and you actually exit the company, you don't pay taxes on that.
Yeah,
So that's
super
actually
attractive.
a decent thing. And with regards to transparency, yes, we have, I think Turkey is quite transparent with regards to the transactions. And rule of law, well, yeah, I mean, the judge is still out there, but let's say it cuts enough mustard to get us going, and we're still all doing that. We haven't hung up our coats and walked away.
Yeah. Okay. I think that was super helpful. I totally agree with the things you have mentioned. Um, so about the transparency that Umar Rezal just mentioned, second, I personally believe that one of the reasons why a startup ecosystem is very attractive, why we are talking that much about Silicon Valley, because there is data, right, and that's public, so we can, if I want to see a company that receive an investment, I just can type it to the Crunchbase and get the relevant rounds, the total investment amount, if it's available, the valuation, etc. So therefore, I totally believe that investors and the startups are coming to the transparency. So data providers like Startup Watch are playing crucial roles in this sense. So what do you think about the Turkey? So is it easy to reach data if you compare it with the other countries, especially to the closer geography? And about the being attractive for the foreigners, we see lots of Azerbaijani companies are also appearing here in Istanbul. We had some meetings with them. So do you believe that with this transparency, are we becoming an attraction point?
Thanks. Our we Myself, I am calling Startup Search as a compass for our ecosystem,
It
because
is.
if you don't have a compass, you are not knowing where you are going. Uh, Sometimes we are helping VCs. Sometimes VCs are saying that we want to prove that, for example, we want to prove that Series B is missing part for our ecosystem,
Yep.
and we are trying to prove that part to our LPs so that they will give us some money. And we are looking our data and saying that yes, after Series A, there are some missing financing option. For that reason, we are helping VCs with that data. Sometimes we are helping regulators, for example, Ministry of Finance, etc., because they are saying that should we give some grants to Series A like companies, tech companies, etc. We are also helping them. Sometimes some foreign investors are coming to us and saying that there's a great hype in Turkey. Why there's a great hype? We don't know why. Can you help us about which industries or verticals should we invest, etc. For that reason, we are helping lots of people with our compass. If you read the compass very well, you can guide them very well. And by transparency, for example, for Greece, I don't know what's going on in Greece because there's no data about Greece. Because especially for Southeastern Europe, there's no data for that. If you go to Western Europe, there are lots of data. Dealroom is great at that part, dealroom.co. And for US and UK, Crunchbase is very well. CB Insights is very well. And you know lots of things about those countries. But for nearby countries like Greece, Bulgaria, etc., there's no data, and they are like missing part in our world ecosystem, startup ecosystem. For that reason, if you have data, you can see what's missing, what's planned to offer, etc. For transparency, etc. For chamber of, if you enter the Chamber of Commerce site, you can see lots of funding data, and it's free. In Western Europe and Northern Europe, the every Chamber of Commerce data, funding data is not free. You should pay some money. For example, I think it costs 4 to 5 euros just for one data of a company. In Turkey, it's free, and you can walk through all day in Chamber of Commerce site, and you can see lots of funding and capital raise data. In US, you can read SEC filings. There's not like our Chamber of Commerce data, but it shows lots of things. And in Israel, they have some great data. You can see what's going on in Israel. But for Southeastern Europe and Middle East, you can't know what's going on very well.
Very happy to hear that. So in terms of data, basically we're looking really transparent, right?
Yeah.
And I also, do you also agree that, that become a reason for attraction for both startups and investors?
Yeah. Actually, for one thing I can add is for US and UK, you can see lots of VC data and private equity data, but for angel side, you can't count angel data in US, UK, etc., because they are not counting $10,000 angel investment, $20,000 angel investment, but we are counting every part of that. And sometimes they are saying that, explicitly saying that we are excluding angel data less than $100,000, but we are adding $2,000. Very explicit data we have. And it's good for startups, by the way, because entrepreneurs also need some compass. They need to know which investor should I go, in which stage should I go, etc.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. Serkan, I would like to thank you for showing us the North. I think that really matters. Thank you.
Thanks.
So Özge, again, so you can keep the pulse of our startup ecosystem because you are also running an accelerator program. So you get lots of applications from both pre-seed and seed stage as well. So what do you think about the next big thing coming in the Turkish startup ecosystem? So because you know the progression of it, so you can remember the 5 years ago. So if you compare it to 5 years ago, what has changed?
Well, actually, I see better decks, first of all, better applications, more and more a global vision. Do I think it's enough? I don't. I think there should be more, globally focused startups coming up. I mean, like we have like huge success stories, right? In Turkey, Yemek Sepeti, Sahibinden, Trendyol, which were local plays, right? And they did a fantastic job. When it comes to conquering the world, becoming a global success story, there are less examples. We do have great examples there as well. One of them, Insider, which you guys know very well through GBA.
Yeah, because we are investor of it, right?
Exactly.
Okay. I saw the peak games as well because basically they were selling all around the world.
Like game, obviously, it's in its nature, right? You're basically global day one. And the good thing is for people who are in the game space, like founders, like the users are very close to you as well. Like Turkey, Serkan knows much better, obviously, about that as well. Like Turkey is one of the biggest markets when it comes to mobile games as well. So you're close to the users and you can do something which can go global easily. What I see and what I hope to see more is, SaaS startups, right? Because it's similar to, gaming, where it's something you can scale much easier, quicker. The operational side is less heavy. Obviously, there's different niches there when it comes to SaaS, like B2B SaaS, which kind of SaaS you are. But when it comes to, no-touch SaaS, where the user, the company, the SME, whatever, can, just land on your page, get excited about the message it sees there, try to understand the value, gets a quick demo, and becomes a customer. That means you basically can make a French guy, a European company, anybody or any company in the world a customer of yours. So I'm hoping to see, and I kind of see that there would be more and more SaaS startups and verticals and founders coming up, because obviously we don't have any other chance, right? Like we know the arbitrage, the the devaluation of Turkish lira,
Yeah.
unfortunately. So when you make 100 customers from Europe versus when you make 100 customers from Turkey is a totally different story, right?
Yeah.
So you have to think globally. I mean, it's a great chance. And the good thing is, that's what I tell to my portfolio companies as well. We have like, 4 investments so far. I'll tell them when I introduce them to European, US investors, I'll tell them the one thing they can't dispute: we're going to be burning less than our competitors. Nobody can burn less than us. We're going to survive much more. And the thing is, we're doing this in Turkey. So we've been through lots of turbulences. We know how to struggle with ups and downs. I think we're like survivors there. So think about us, that we're going to be surviving much longer with less money, but we have the same aspire to conquer the world. And I think that's something they can't dispute, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
true. We're going to be.
By the way, that's a part of Turkish culture, right? We are very good in
Yep,
surviving somehow.
yep. Yeah. As long as you keep your operations and R&D and everything in Turkey, and you do the country expansion, the sales and marketing outside of the world, you're totally uncompetable when it comes to burn. So I think that's a huge advantage, and that's what I'm like hoping to see more and more. And we do see that actually with our with the upcoming applications and the corporate accelerator program as well.
So basically, to sum up, you said that we learn how to sell not only to Turkey but also rest of the world just from sitting here in Turkey.
Yeah, that's what we need to think about and try to do.
Yeah. Okay, very well said. So I have a common question to all of you. So we talk about basically majorly from the upside of our ecosystem, and I really wanted to be transparent about it. So in your opinion, what are the areas for the improvement? Actually, Umur Özal, you were saying, and you just said that you have something to add about it. So area for further improvements.
Well, that was actually one of your. Wow. Okay. Because I forgot to answer one of your questions. I was actually writing about
Maybe
that.
you can edit here. Yeah. Or
Sure. You asked me about the point of view of LPs, and come to think of it, what we do is actually the cornerstone of basic capitalism. We're here to make money. Unless you operate with a very strict mandate, such as a DFI or a fund of funds, your primary concern is to make money through investments.
Yeah, and also actually with a margin as compared to the ordinary deposit. So we have to make more money.
Yeah, exactly. You don't. I mean, unless you have a very social or environmental obligation, that's what we go out for. So, from the point of view of LPs or investors, investors who invest into funds, I think there need to be 4 things. You need a very clear exchange of information. Again, transparency throughout all transactions. I'd say ability to repatriate your investment to the fund in a favorable environment or terms.
Yep.
And I'd say some sense of urgency, meaning the VC managers or GPs usually walk to the drum of their own, to the beat of their own drums, whereas LPs don't necessarily have the same sort of expectations. So if you can actually align those things, and I think Turkey started actually accommodating some of those requirements in the right sense. So that's why we see actually a lot of foreign investors coming and investing into funds as well. So that was the point of LPs. Now, as for areas of improvement, I keep on saying the same thing. We need definitely more money. $400 million dry powder, fine, but this is a country with 85 million people. On the global scale, I think we generate close to 1 point something percent of GDP, and our allocation for the VCs is less than 0.4%. Last I looked, but Serkan probably has better numbers on that.
So basically, sorry, Umur Bey, you are just saying that the portion that VCs and angel investors are providing to the ecosystem is low as compared to GDP?
Money. I mean, among global money or the pool of funds. what we are getting compared to what we produce is very little. So there's definitely
Okay, got
room
it.
for improvement.
Share. Okay. Yeah, GDP
Um,
share then. All right, got
yeah.
it. Mhm.
Then, I mean, we have a very high youth unemployment rate, so maybe we can actually retrain that idle workforce so that these people can contribute or participate somehow. I'd say increase quality of talent either through real world applicable education or training, because you asked me about improvement, possible
Mhm.
areas of
Yeah.
improvement. And if we cannot do it in a very short period of time, which is probably impossible, then I would say we all complain about brain drain, right? People just go, like places westward. So maybe we can actually be the target for a lot of Central Asian or Middle Eastern countries to come over. And we can provide a more accommodating environment for them. So we can be the center for actually the brain drain. We can attract some talent,
Mhm.
be it India, Pakistan, Iran, Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, or some countries in the Middle East. We can actually encourage them to come over here and participate in what we are doing. Um, I actually strongly support crowdfunding initiative.
Mhm.
So maybe actually, I heard that the regulatory authority is encouraging that as well, but I don't have actually the latest news. So that would help definitely for the ecosystem. And maybe last but not least, London, for example, has AIM. It's the alternative investment market.
Mhm.
We have the Istanbul Stock Exchange here, but underneath we have regional markets. If it were much easier to actually float a company here, and if we could actually open it up for international players so that they can deploy capital more easily, that would make everyone's life easier. You don't have to be $100 million company to go public, and then you can do dual listings somewhere else. But just get off the ground. If you have uh, scarcity of money or funding, then actually create another system, and that would certainly attract some institutional investors in as well. That's my 3 cents.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. So, Özge, what would you like to say about this? Room for improvement.
Well, the improvement, what always comes to my mind is always more liquidity meant.
Mhm.
We should have more exits. How can we do that? There could be two ways, as far as I can see. Either there's going to be buyers outside of Turkey,
Mhm.
which is always tricky because it always looks to the macro environment as well, right? Like, is it safe to buy a company in Turkey? Is it not? How would it, play out in 5 years, 10 years, right? It could be
Yep.
sometimes tricky. But when it comes to local buyers, you don't have that kind of concern. So what I think it's going to happen, by the way, because I I saw the change, like you said, in 5 years, how big companies, enterprises looked at startups and how it changed. We can become their customers. We can partner with them. We can have them right in our own building with our own corporate activities. We can invest in them. The next phase is going to be eventually we can buy these guys out. We need these guys. We can acquire these guys.
Mhm.
It started, I remember one or two examples from this year, like a proper incumbent buying a proper startup, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's going
Right.
to happen a lot, I think, in
Mhm.
2 to 4 and 5 years. And then everything's going to change. Why? Then the angel investor is going to say, hey, look, this could be easily a 30 million, $40 million company, and this enterprise can buy these guys. They already bought 4 more companies, right?
Mhm.
Or there's going to be new startups coming out and saying, okay, we can make serious money in this thing. Like we can have this thing, and there's lots of buyers outside. I mean, inside of Turkey as well. So I think this M&A culture will also change, and big companies when they get used to the idea that maybe the talent is outside there as well, and maybe when we have this talent within our organization, we can have a much more bigger impact. Like obviously, like Facebook would be never a good example in this context because there never were an incumbent. But right now, obviously, There were an incumbent for Snapchat. They were an incumbent for Instagram. And Mark Zuckerberg managed to buy Instagram. He didn't manage to buy Snapchat, but he could have. but he managed to buy an Instagram and look at the upside, right? He did. Same with Google and YouTube. There are examples where in Europe, in US, where an incumbent buys in a startup or a scale up, whatever, and
Hmm.
the outcome is huge. Obviously, it doesn't always play out that way, because sometimes you just buy it and you close them because you're threatened by them. But still, there's a liquidity event, and some people are happy about it, right? The angel is happy about it. The early stage investor is happy about it. Maybe the founders are happy about it as well. So we need to have these happy outcomes more and more, and that's going to happen with the culture change with M&As, and I think it's going to happen.
Yeah, yeah, definitely well said. And Sarkan, what would you like to add to that? So, any room for improvement in our startup ecosystem?
Yeah, we need two things for improvements added to Umur and Özge. One is we need more global thinking entrepreneurs, because Yemek Sepeti EasyCo showed us that in local you can get some money and exit for $200 million, $500 million, etc. But we need more global thinking, global success stories. And the other thing is we need more Series B, Series C rounds, and both are related. If we have lots of global thinking entrepreneurs, we will see
Yeah.
lots of Series B, Series C, because if you showed your numbers like $100,000 per month recurring revenue to a VC, you can get lots of Series A rounds. But to get some Series B stage, you have to go globally. By staying here, by staying in Turkey, you can't get Series B or Series C. You need to be global. It's the gate for globalization. For that reason, we need more global thinking entrepreneurs and more Series B, Series C stage.
Yeah, but when you say Series B, Series C, you are referring to the VCs funded here in Turkey and supporting Turkish startups, or you're just talking in general?
For Turkish startups, we need 10 Insider, 10 EasyCo, etc., 10 Gram Games. We need to multiple all of those international thinking entrepreneurs.
And also maybe some strong Turkish VCs that are supporting them in Series B and Series C as well. Maybe that will definitely fasten the process.
Yeah, actually, if you create a Series B VC company in Turkey, your funnel will be very low, very limited, because if you walk around for Series B stage, you will get 10 or 15 startups, scale-ups.
Okay.
We need to increase that.
Yeah, very well said. Maybe one last thing I can add to the things that you have said, maybe specifically to Özge about the exit side. I really wish that we have some, eased IPO process for the startups. So that will definitely, help more startups to join in the game. So that will be one reason to have more startups in our ecosystem. And I believe that's going to happen as well, because I heard about some news that some startups are actually scale-ups are preparing to go through that path. So, so the last question, but it's not the least, maybe that's the most important question. So I kindly ask you to tell us 2 startups to follow from Turkish startup ecosystem that are, possibly $200 million plus valuation. So, and they're, somehow good opportunity to invest in. Maybe our audience might be interested in that. So, Umar Özal, what would you like to say about that?
Okay, I'm a big
You
fan
are
of.
more than welcome if you say more than 2, by the way. So more is better.
How about I give you 4.
Okay, go ahead. So
Um,
sorry, audience. So I think you should, be ready with your pencil and the notebook. Just write it down.
since I'm a big fan of AI, one of the real AI companies in the whole region, all the way from Estonia down to Middle East, and further east to India, I'd say Tarentum.
Mm-hmm.
They're a great team, incredible team. They work very, very diligently, and they have some very good products that are in real life applicable. So they're great.
Okay.
My second candidate would be a robotic process automation company. Um, that would be a direct competitor to UiPath, but with regards to processes, they're actually much simpler. Whereas one a regular robot through UiPath system would be able to undertake six, seven processes and different things. This one does one robot does one automation work, but it's much cheaper, and it's quite scalable because it's great for SMEs. Their name is Chronica.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a very big fan of them. The third one would be actually a GBA, Galata Business Angels investment, Garay Sepeti. I
Mm-hmm.
think they're on their way to some good progress. And since actually data companies, especially financial data companies, are doing really well nowadays, we've seen six, seven examples. Since he's with us, I'm saying Startup Watch.
Yeah, I
Thanks.
agree. So yeah, it's well said. So don't miss this opportunity. Okay, Serkan.
Ata,
So as you have the ball,
Uh,
sorry, Özge, you were saying something. Sorry. Okay, Serkan.
my
Startup
votes
Watch.
are
So that's number one. Then
my votes are for Mutlu bir Ev and Apsiyon. One is
yeah.
for cleaning service, one is for property management. They are my
Okay.
favorites.
Mutlu bir ev and option. Okay, well said. Özge, I know
I
your
have to
answer,
be
but okay.
I have to be political here, man. Like,
Okay, no worries.
what I'm serious about, like the audience, somebody who watched this later on, check out www.qmbeyond.com. It's a
Yeah.
great corporate accelerator with great teams who like are gonna do great stuff. There are more than like 15 companies there that you can find details about. You should watch all of them very closely because they're all fantastic teams.
Okay, you don't make any mistakes. Okay, I get it. Perfect. 100%. Okay. Serkan Ünsal, Muraza, and Özge, thank you very much for being us today. I think we clearly, we showed the big picture about our ecosystem with the, upsides and downsides as well. So I think we had really be fair about it. And besides, being from this startup ecosystem, I think I believe you have been really objective. As a moderator, I can say that. Thank you very much, and have a good weekend. So I wish you a happy New Year for all the audiences in healthy days, and happier days, and prosperous days. So bye bye. Thank you.
Bye.